chat together in groups, okay? And then we'll put it all together in a opinion. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So, just to introduce our talk together, our discussions together, in what ways might we also think about hope? Paul has given us a fantastic introduction. We've heard some thoughts from you. But can we ask questions of hope, or can hope ask questions? Might hope be active and not passive? The questions that hope might ask might be things like, what are the possibilities in this situation in which we find ourselves? What might be the roadmap for a different future? And what might we think authentic hope can be grounded in? What qualities are needed to make hope authentic, strong, and powerful? I even used the word wild the other day when I was talking to some people. Wild and unrestrained like nature. We might think of, in terms of hope, the qualities of compassion, love, truth, wisdom, mercy, justice, and creativity, just as a start. And finally, what connections can we make when exercising authentic hope? How can we draw people into this virtue, this practice, this spiritual discipline? And what outcomes might we see? So I invite you in small groups to look at these two questions. What does hope look like in action for you? This is a personal question. And then moving on, I'd like you to consider that for 10 minutes maybe. Then moving on, how does Green Christian encourage you in it? For example, in our resources, in our magazine, and so on, and days like this.
So, we said, hope in action, what does it look like? We said, sometimes it looks like the gifts of people who feel or actually do have very little to offer being given and pooled in community and building community. And we said that in our experience, that sometimes leads to a sense of peace. I don't know whether that's linked to the community or the wholeness. We also said that in whatever way you engage with prayer, prayer is part of hope and the basis for hope. And that's okay, because when Jesus was overwhelmed, what did he do? He went away and he prayed. And we noted that he went into nature and at mountains, and he would have a different perspective looking over the olives on the hills. So we thought also that prayer enables us to pause and to notice, noticing and reflecting and wondering and having curiosity. And then we notice the good things that are happening, and they're not just Christian stuff. So we talked in our group about the World Wildlife Fund and adopting a turtle, as I have done. It's the cheapest animal to adopt. And then we can learn from nature. And there was a lovely story about where, I'm not sure where, but Bangladesh maybe, local people and elephants weren't agreeing, and the elephants were fed up and they were coming in and trampling and just creating havoc. And the people discovered that bees frighten elephants, so they put beehives up and the elephants stopped coming in and trampled. But also they were managing to produce honey from the hives, and so they had a means of living as well. So they learned from nature and used it for everyone's advantage. And then despite those good things that we do notice, and it's important to notice them, we still actually feel that despite this, there's less hope for some of us, or in some of us rather. We are less hopeful than we were a few years ago. So what can we do about it? And going back to elephants, we thought about breaking it down. How do you eat an elephant in bite-sized chunks? So breaking it all down. And then being able to think about this mismatch between the size of the problem and what the future looks like, and the size of the response. The response isn't meeting the size of the problem, but then we break down the obstacles and remove them one at a time in conversations like this. And so we actually find our hope in Green Christian and in the resources. And we think that the resources help not just us, but wider church groups and other groups as well. And we also think it's hopeful that different Christian organisations like TIFF, CAFOD, Christian Aid are working together. And we would like our Green Christian publicity to reflect this. And sometimes we feel that maybe still some evangelicals might be put off by some of the publicity or not being included as much. That's just a comment. I think that's all right.
So we got into some really deep conversations, so I'm just going to pick a couple of nuggets, because there was a lot of passion about this. One person shared, hope is the opposite of denial. It's what we need, it's essential for action, which I really like. I don't like that they said that. I've already shared, for me, my hope is in Jesus and in the Bible. For me, that's what Christian hope is about. I don't know what this journey is going to look like. I believe there'll be a new world, but I still believe we can be better people for the time that we're here on that journey. So that's my hope. One of our groups talking about no longer do they, there's the for, the in, the hope for, hope in, and hope beyond. The challenges in, for and in, with such difficulties with the main targets that we're trying to hit. The people responsible for that are government leaders and the big corporates. So that's very difficult sometimes to have hope in reaching those targets. And so another way to put this was hope beyond, which has been touched on already, the importance and opportunity to take seriously and have compassion for God's creation as Christians that we're called to, via going much deeper with contemplative prayer. I think that's prayer seems to be coming up as a theme today. And really, there's always going to be some people that just don't get it, but trying to connect, like us today, with people who are going to build us up, who do get it. Then we touched, are we going on to how Green Christians helped? Yes. Okay, so I think a common thread for all of us was the connectivity with people who share the same values and passions. And for us, we felt between us, Green Christian offered so much. One person said, walking with people who get it is very encouraging. Another person talked about linking hands with others. For me, I think we love hearing the success stories of on-the-ground projects that have been done. It's not all bad news, there's some really good stuff going on out there. Sense of belonging, and knowing that others are doing good stuff out there in the field. And for me, I was a baby Green Christian 6 years ago, and I'm still inspired knowing from many of you who've been doing this a lot longer than me. Thank you.
I think we've got nuggets too. So, I mean, I'll just go through nugget by nugget. And we also mentioned that business of being together, that you need to join together, which you just said, haven't you? Walking together in these difficult times and work it so that, and indeed finding somebody else who also it seems to be the only person taking this climate thing seriously. I feel that in my church. You know that the others are thinking something, but you don't know what, and they're not saying it. And dare you ask them? So working together is enormously useful and important. And then finally, the green Christian. I'm not going to go in order. The green Christian. Look in the prayers. You can find hope in the prayer diary. The prayer diary. So I should be looking in the prayer diary. I didn't know that. So that's a useful thing that Green Christian do. And what I also feel is that if you come to these meetings, you start thinking of things that you didn't think of before. Ideas came into my head which I wouldn't have got unless I'd been here. So that's, I think, the main thing for Green Christian. We're working together, finding ideas and supporting each other. Hope must be connected with action. What does hope look like in action? We must take action, and a very important and obvious point, I know, but we need to repeat it to ourselves, and if we dare, repeat it to others, that if you don't do anything, you're not obeying the second commandment, love your neighbour. You know, it's as raw as that. You know, you're just not fulfilling one of the commandments, because this is damaging our neighbours, and it is our duty to help them. So I think we do need to be reminded of the obvious there. I like one comment made, positive and negative connections. You connect the positive with the negative. What do you get? Light. The lights come on. And quite often, you know, we can be very positive and forward, but then someone brings the negative in, and that actually deepens the people who were positive, because they have to cope with the negative. And if they can do, their message, I think, becomes more effective. And of course, the person who was feeling negative might feel a little more positive. Anything else that I should have mentioned? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we had a lot of conversation. We probably went off piste for most of it, but I'll try and bring out what we did come up with along these slides. So I think we discussed at the beginning that we do see some hope around us. Quite often it's actually in non-Christian organisations that you find hope and joy in sort of environmental things. Like I'm involved with the Permaculture Association and the localisation movement and transition towns, things like that. And we were talking about how can that be married together with the Christians involved in this sort of thing. We talked about non-violent action as something that can bring hope, and the need to be doing more than sort of changing our lifestyles and trying to get the government to change what they're doing. But we also discussed on the other side, we do feel, you know, there's lots of great things happening in the world and in communities, but there's also, it seems in society, so much negativity and people being selfish and rude, and that can be quite frustrating too. With the Green Christian Resources, most people in the group found that the magazine is very helpful and they want to share it with other people, and the leaflets and the posters are all good. We used some of the leaflets at our Harvest Festival this year, and it's good to have something to hand out to people that they can look at in the future. We talked a bit about the magazine sort of balance between lamentation and all the things that are bad compared to joy. I feel I'd like to see a little bit more sort of joy and hope in it personally, but the others were very happy with the way it is.
We came up with lots of the same things as talked about here, and knowing that other people are doing things and so on. But one thing that we ended up talking about, which hasn't come up yet, and the phrase was tipping points. And to me, to answer the question of hope in action, it is for me people pushing and plugging on, doing things, when they can't actually see any change, but they're sticking with it. That's the hope in action. What actually happens sometimes is that it gets to a point which they're not expecting, and suddenly something shifts. It's like when you've got a crowbar and you're trying to knock a wall down. Nothing moves and then suddenly it does. And can think back, and many of us can think back to the mid-80s, where in 1985 we had no idea that within 5 years the Berlin Wall was going to come down and apartheid was going to finish.
Yeah.
People were plugging, and then it shifted. And so some of these things that are going on now with people pushing for change, keep pushing the hope in action, it may well be that something will actually shift significantly. Whether it's a paradigm shift in the economics or something, or whether it's actual sort of legislation, we don't know. We keep working at it.
We talked about a lot that has been mentioned, but I just wanted to share a quote from Ruth Valerio that gave us, which I think is very succinct. Act hope into being. Act hope into being. We thought that was...
Well, thank you all. I hope that's been an absolutely fantastic sort of starter for you, because you will go on to think more about this in your churches and communities and in your families. So thank you for your hard work this afternoon.